Hello, everyone. Today, we're gonna be talking about my ancestors, right? My ancestors. I'm related to many different people groups across Europe. Um, I'm a descendant, of all these ancestors across Europe. Some of the most interesting groups of people. I'm related to the Breischaffs, the Feraces, very historic families from Europe, and their stories have crossed over to, of course, the other side of the world, or at least the other side to North America, anyway. To Europe all the way to North America. Their stories are over here now, so I would like to talk about them. So I guess first we're going to talk about the Bride Shafts. This is mostly my mom's side of the family. I don't know a whole lot about my dad's side because they came in much earlier. But my mom's side, the Bride Shafts, they were a very important group that spoke High German in Germany, Breischaffs. And they were Catholic at one point. I believe so, anyway. They were near the Swiss border. I think one of them fought during World War One. I could be wrong on that, for the German Empire. Um, this seems like a very interesting family that I was never related to. I mean, I've never named Breischaft, but I'm direct descendants of them. Their family history is very interesting. They're one of the last. That's the last descendant of my European ancestors. I actually got to meet them. One of my last ancestors from Europe. She died when I was 3 months old. She was my great grandmother. She was from Germany and she spoke High German when I was a little baby. But she doesn't. Obviously, she's dead now, so nobody really speaks High German in my family anymore. I've never been to Germany. None of my family's been to Germany. So it's been many years, but that's kind of cool. I mean, I guess my dad has when he was in school, but we're not going to talk about that, all right? Then we're going to talk about the Phrases, right? These are the many tribes or families that I'm related to across in Europe. Phrase. The Phrases are a very historical family. They were once a prince. They had princes of Italy. There's a prince named Phrase. They were like middle class princes. They weren't like big. They weren't as wealthy as like the king of Italy or whatever, but they controlled large territories of northern Italy. They didn't control all of it, but they controlled chunks of it. Of course, they got taken over. And then I'm related to my last name, actually, the Gerloffs, which is not spelled correctly in my last name, but Gerloff was a guy in the 1200s, and around, I think 1200s all the way to 1400s. I could be wrong on this. It looks like there was three lines of three. There was a family, a grandfather, a father, and a son trying to fight over against the King of England. They lost their language and their culture. The King of England annexed them for 300 years, and then they became Wales afterwards in the 1800s. So, I mean, the Wales was always there, but it was a part of England, and it was literally direct control. There was no Welsh law at all. For 300 years, Welsh law didn't exist. And then what happened was one of the descendants of the king would be the Prince of Wales, and they would pass it down to their son once they became king. So that's kind of sort of happened. So, yes, I am actually a direct descendant of one of the last Prince of Wales that's not related to the English monarch, which is kind of interesting. I'm also a direct descendant of King John of England from 1200s. But yes, I'm related to all these different people groups. And I find it so interesting because I don't know a lot of people who know the history behind those people groups. Neither do I, really, because it's been so long since my ancestors have been in North America. But I know a lot of friends who are first time immigrants who have these stories, and I would like them to somehow preserve it, either through a YouTube video like this or, I don't know, like, some way to preserve the story, before they get completely Americanized and they learn English forever, kind of, for their families learn English like my family did. Um, I want them to preserve the culture a little bit, or at least talk about the culture, about when they were, when they moved here and stuff like that. I want stories like that. I would love to, you could have it in your native language in English. That would be kind of cool. I would just like to see more videos like this. Videos of this ancestors, because those are like the three major families. I don't know a whole lot about the Munros. I am direct descendant of the Munros too. I think they may have been a Scottish family or a French family, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Um, I'm 100% certain they're probably Scottish, because they're all on my dad's side. Um, but I could be entirely wrong. The Munro side does sound like it's French though. It doesn't sound very Scottish to me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm bad with names. But I just find the whole, all these tribes of Europe, before it was, you married your first and second cousin marriages were more common. And once they banned them, third cousin marriages were more common. And so Europe became a lot more genetically diverse. But they still had their like nationality language group sort of nation state groups, right? And they were always controlled by like kings or whatever. And then you go to like the United States, and well, that structure has now broken down, the genetic structure of those tribes, which is completely fine. I think that's a good thing. I think it's created more education, more trust in people. The problem is with a society like ours, where we've broken down the family structure, the clan structure. The problem is, you need bowling alleys, you need movie theaters, you need places for people to meet up. But the problem is, ever since the 90s, people have been more and more lonely. And so a society like ours, where we don't have close families like other countries, that can create high amounts of depression. And you're starting to see spikes of suicide like you've never seen before. If you ever wanted to break a country, a wealthy country like the United States, this would be the way to do it. And I generally think that this is how the United States ends. Is its bowling alleys are gone. It's all of its extra activities, which is what it was built off of, are gone. And we were not the first ones to have this family structure. It's been a very successful family structure, but once you lose the social institutions of trust, there's nothing left, because the families are very separated. A man and a woman moves out, makes a new family, new household. They might have the same last names as the old family, but the new household's separate from the old family, and if they don't have a social structure to go to, like churches, bowling alleys, and community centers or whatever, the whole society breaks down, and you start becoming California. You start to break trust and stuff like that, and you start voting for high Democrat politicians, which I completely disagree with the politicians. Yes, I believe, yes, we should have communities, but we shouldn't force collectivization on people. So in that sense, I'm more of a libertarian than the average Californian. But I do love California. I will always remember living there. I will always love it in some regard. Even if I disagree with the politics of it, I can understand why they believe the things they do. Because of the way the world has taught them. The way the teachers have, misled them. If you're taught the wrong thing your entire life, you're gonna vote the same way as everyone else. If you're taught to do the wrong thing, or taught to think think differently than what reality is actually telling you you should think, and teachers have done this since the age of 5, told you to think one way, think more about fairness rather than the environment, rather than survival, then that's exactly what collectivized societies believe in. Is that they're beyond human, beyond nature itself. Their human comprehension is more about equality. Then that's what people are taught to believe, and they believe fairness is a more important thing than survival. I disagree entirely, but that's what they believe, and it's kind of sad, because I feel like we need both voices. We can't just drown out one and we can't drown out the other. But anyway, that's enough about the history of the tribes and families and ancestors that I'm related to. I would like to hear your guys' story. I want to hear your guys' story about where did your ancestors come from? Were they fighting people like mine? They fought against the English and they lost. Like, that's a very heroic story. And the fact that my ancestors adopted English culture, the Welsh guys, the Garoffs, and they became English speaking. That's a very heroic story, regardless of the fact they lost their entire language and culture and religion to the English. I think it's heroic. But anyway, you're someone, I'm someone else, talking about my ancestors and how they survived. Goodbye.